Hello, friends, and welcome back. If you're a Canadian Armed Forces veteran, an RCMP veteran, a war veteran, or a family member of one, today's video is for you. I'm going to walk you through 3 money surprises landing this August, exactly how much you could be entitled to, the dates your payments arrive, and a handful of details that a lot of veterans go years without ever being told. Everything in this video is based on the official Veterans Affairs Canada rate tables and the Service Canada payment calendar, so grab a pen and paper, because we're covering real numbers, real dates, and some benefits that quietly get missed. Before we get started, if you find this useful, subscribe and turn on the bell, because every month I break down what's changed in veterans' benefits and pensions, in plain language, without the government jargon. Let's get into it. Let's start with a quick reminder of who this applies to. Veterans Affairs Canada, or VAC, supports former members of the Canadian Armed Forces and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police who were injured or became ill because of their service, along with wartime veterans, merchant Navy veterans, and their survivors. Many veterans are also seniors, which means on top of anything VAC pays out, they're also collecting old age security and, in some cases, the Guaranteed Income Supplement, through Service Canada. That overlap matters, because this month, both sides of that equation are moving. Let's break it down one surprise at a time. Surprise number 1, your disability pension or pain and suffering compensation rate changed on January 1st, and it's still sitting there whether you've noticed or not. If you receive a monthly disability benefit through VAC, that could mean the disability pension, which is the older program still used for some Canadian Armed Forces and RCMP veterans, or pain and suffering compensation, which falls under the newer pension for life framework. Either way, your monthly amount is tied directly to your assessed disability percentage, and those rate tables were updated as of January 1, 2026. Here's the range so you can see where you sit. At a 10% disability rating, the monthly amount comes in at roughly $180. At a 100% rating, the full and most severe assessment, the monthly amount climbs to close to $3,940. Everything in between is calculated proportionally to your percentage. If you have a spouse, a common-law partner, or dependent children, your monthly payment increases further on top of that base amount, and this is the part that trips people up. Those dependent increases are not always applied automatically, especially if your family situation changed after your original assessment. If you got married, had a child, or your marital status changed since your last VAC file update, it's worth confirming your dependent information is current, because that alone can raise your monthly deposit. These benefits are entirely tax-free, which means the number on your bank statement is the number you actually keep, nothing gets clawed back at tax time. As for timing, VAC disability payments are typically deposited on the last business day of the month. For August 2026, that puts your expected deposit around Friday, August 28th. If you're on direct deposit, the funds usually land early in the day. If you're still receiving a check by mail, billed in a few extra business days, and if it hasn't arrived by the following week, that's your signal to call VAC directly rather than keep waiting. One more thing worth knowing here, if your medical condition has gotten worse since your last assessment, whether that's the original injury progressing or a related condition developing, you're allowed to request a reassessment. If VAC agrees your percentage should be higher, your monthly payment goes up from that point forward. But just like the dependent increases, this is not something that happens on its own. Nobody at VAC is tracking your day-to-day condition and proactively bumping your rating. You have to initiate that request yourself, with updated medical documentation, a completed quality of life questionnaire, and your doctor's notes connecting your current limitations back to your service. If it's been years since your last assessment and things have changed, that paperwork could be worth a meaningfully higher monthly amount. Surprise number 2, the War Veterans Allowance exists, it adjusts with inflation, and most people who qualify never apply for it. This is the one I want you to really pay attention to, because in my experience, it's the most underused benefit in the entire system. The War Veterans Allowance, or WVA, is a separate, tax-free, monthly payment specifically for lower-income wartime veterans, merchant Navy veterans, qualified civilians who served in specific wartime roles, and their surviving spouses or common-law partners. Unlike your disability pension, which is based on your medical assessment, the WVA is income-tested. That means the amount you receive depends on your marital status, whether you have dependents, and how much income you're already bringing in from other sources, including OAS and GIS. Veterans Affairs Canada essentially looks at what you're already receiving and tops it up toward a set income ceiling. If your other income is low, your WVA amount can be meaningful. If your other income is closer to the ceiling, your WVA amount shrinks accordingly. And here's the detail that connects back to what we talked about with OAS. The WVA is adjusted quarterly, on the same schedule as OAS and GIS, specifically to keep pace with the cost of living. So if your other income sources shifted this quarter, or the cost of living adjustment moved, your WVA amount for August may not be identical to what you received back in the spring, even if nothing changed on your end. Now here's the part that genuinely surprises people. This benefit is not automatic. Nobody at Veterans Affairs Canada is required to reach out and tell you that you qualify. If you're a wartime veteran, a merchant Navy veteran, or the surviving spouse or common-law partner of one, and your household income is modest, the only way to start receiving the War Veterans Allowance is to apply for it directly. I have heard from veterans in their 80s and 90s who had no idea this program existed, simply because it was never part of their original paperwork, and their income situation changed enough years later that they would now qualify. If that might describe you, a family member, or a widow or widower you know, the move is simple. Call Veterans Affairs Canada directly at 1-866-522-2122, Monday to Friday, and ask specifically whether you or your loved one qualifies for the War Veterans Allowance. It costs you a phone call, and it could mean a recurring monthly deposit you didn't know was sitting there. While we're on this topic, there's also an assistance fund tied to the WVA program, which can provide emergency grants of up to $1,000 per calendar year for veterans facing an unexpected issue affecting their health or safety, things like an urgent home repair or a medical expense not otherwise covered. If you're already receiving WVA and you hit an unexpected cost this year, ask about this fund specifically, because it's separate from your regular monthly payment and it's easy to miss. Surprise number 3, if you're also collecting OAS and GIS, your August deposit is bigger than your July one, and here's exactly why. A large number of Canadian veterans are also seniors, which means alongside anything from VAC, they're collecting old age security, and in some cases, the Guaranteed Income Supplement, through Service Canada. Old age security is reviewed 4 times a year, every January, April, July, and October, based on changes in the cost of living. The July to September 2026 quarter brought a 1.2% increase, which happens to be the largest quarterly bump of the year so far. That change first landed with the July 29th payment, and it carries through to your August 27th deposit and your September 25th deposit as well, since OAS rate changes hold steady for the full 3-month quarter. In dollar terms, that puts the maximum monthly OAS amount at approximately $751.97 if you're between 65 and 74 years old, and approximately $827.17 if you're 75 or older. That higher amount for seniors 75 and up isn't a separate application, it's an automatic 10% increase that kicks in the month after your 75th birthday. If you're receiving GIS on top of your OAS because your income is modest, that amount moves on the same quarterly schedule, so it may have shifted this quarter too, based on your most recently filed tax return. A word of caution here, because this matters, these are maximum amounts, not guaranteed amounts. Your actual OAS depends on how many years you've lived in Canada since turning 18, with the full maximum requiring 40 years of residency. Your actual GIS depends entirely on your income and marital status. If you want to know your specific personal number rather than the maximum ceiling, log into my Service Canada account and check your statement of contributions, which will show your real numbers rather than the headline figures we're using here as a general guide. A few more things worth knowing while we're on the subject of VAC benefits. If you experienced a severe, traumatic service-related injury, there's a separate one-time, tax-free payment called the critical injury benefit, meant to address the immediate impact of the most serious injuries, and it's a substantial lump sum, well into 6 figures. This is different from your ongoing monthly disability payment. It's a separate program entirely, so if you or someone you know had a severe traumatic injury and never had this benefit assessed, it's worth asking VAC about directly. There's also an education and training benefit available to eligible veterans, which can fund college, university, or technical programs, and a portion of that same funding can be used for shorter certification or professional development courses. If you're a more recently released veteran thinking about a career change or additional training, this is worth looking into before you assume you have to pay out of pocket. And if the unthinkable happens and a Canadian Armed Forces member dies while still in service, there's a one-time, tax-free death benefit paid to a spouse, common-law partner, and any dependent children. This one obviously isn't something anyone hopes to need, but if you're a survivor and you're not sure whether this applies to your situation, it's worth a direct conversation with VAC rather than assuming. Here's your action list for this week. Number 1. Confirm your direct deposit banking details are current in both my VAC account and my Service Canada account, since an outdated or closed account is still the single biggest reason a payment gets delayed. Number 2. If your VAC disability assessment is old and your condition has changed since then, look into requesting a reassessment with updated medical documentation. Number 3. If you're a wartime veteran, a merchant Navy veteran, or a surviving spouse or common-law partner living on modest income, call Veterans Affairs Canada this week and ask specifically about the War Veterans Allowance, even if you assumed in the past that you didn't qualify. Number 4. If you're also collecting OAS, mark August 27th on your calendar, and if your income is modest, confirm your GIS was recalculated correctly for this quarter based on your most recent tax return. And number 5. If you had a severe service-related injury and you're not sure whether the critical injury benefit was ever assessed for your case, ask VAC directly rather than assuming it wasn't relevant to you. One quick note for RCMP veterans specifically, since I get this question often, RCMP disability pension dates can run a day or two apart from Canadian Armed Forces veteran dates, even though both fall under the same last business day of the month pattern. It's a small gap, usually just one business day, but if you're used to comparing notes with a CAF veteran friend and your deposit shows up a day earlier or later than theirs, that's normal, not a mistake. I also want to touch on something that comes up a lot in the comments, the difference between a lump sum award and a monthly payment. When pain and suffering compensation was introduced under Pension for Life, veterans were given a choice between receiving it as an ongoing monthly amount for life, or as a one-time lump sum. If you chose the lump sum years ago, you won't see a recurring pain and suffering compensation deposit each month, and that's expected, not an error. If you're not sure which option you originally chose, or whether you're even eligible to switch, that's a direct question for VAC rather than something to guess at from your bank statement. I want to be upfront about something before we close out. Rates, thresholds, and payment dates for these programs get reviewed and adjusted regularly by both Veterans Affairs Canada and Service Canada, so treat the numbers in this video as a solid general guide, not the final word for your specific file. The most accurate, up-to-the-day figures for your situation will always come from your My VAC account, your My Service Canada account, or a direct phone call to either department. These benefits exist because of your service, and because of the service of the people who came before you. Knowing exactly what you're entitled to, and making sure it's actually landing in your account, isn't a luxury, it's simply staying informed about money that's already yours. If this video helped you, share it with another veteran, a spouse, or a family member who might be missing out on something they didn't know existed, because information like this doesn't always reach the people who need it most. Subscribe for next month's update, and I'll see you in the next video.